The great hall of the galactic research vessel buzzed with excitement. Scientists from 12 different worlds had gathered to hear the most important presentation of the year. Dr. Velnara stepped onto the platform, her blue skin gleaming under the bright lights. Her 4 eyes scanned the crowd of alien faces staring back at her. "Fellow researchers," she began, her voice carrying across the silent room. "Today, I will prove that humans cannot survive on ice worlds." The audience leaned forward. Everyone knew about the strange new species called humans. They came from a warm planet called Earth. They had soft pink skin and only 2 eyes. Most aliens thought they looked very weak. Dr. Velnara touched a button on her control pad. A huge screen showed pictures of Kythera 7, the ice planet that humans wanted to make their new home. The planet looked like a giant white ball covered in snow and ice. Wind marks showed where terrible storms crossed the surface. "Look at this world," Dr. Velnara said, pointing at the screen. "The temperature is always below freezing. The average temperature is -40 degrees. Sometimes it gets as cold as -60 degrees. The wind blows at 100 kilometers per hour during storms." She touched another button. Now the screen showed pictures of humans. They looked small and fragile next to the tough alien species in the room. Their skin was thin. They had no fur or scales to protect them from cold. "Now look at these humans," she continued. "They are warm-blooded creatures from a mild planet. Their homeworld has an average temperature of 15 degrees above freezing. They wear artificial coverings called clothes to stay warm. Without these clothes, they would die in just a few hours in normal Earth winter." Commander Zektor of the armored beetle people nodded his heavy head. His people lived on a world of burning deserts, but even they had thick shells to protect them. "How do humans plan to survive on such a cold world?" he asked. "Excellent question," Dr. Velnara replied. "They plan to use machines, heating machines, shelter machines, food-making machines. But what happens when these machines break down? What happens when the power fails?" She showed new pictures on the screen. These showed human heating systems and the complex power plants needed to run them. The technology looked impressive, but also very complicated. "My research team studied human biology for 2 full years," she explained. "We learned that humans lose body heat very quickly. Their skin has no natural insulation. They cannot grow thick fur like the ice bears of Frostheim. They cannot slow their heart rate like the snow swimmers of Glacier Prime." Dr. Klunth, a tall creature with silver fur, raised one of her 6 arms. "But surely humans have some cold weather abilities. All species develop ways to handle their environment." "That is exactly my point," Dr. Velnara said with satisfaction. "Humans develop technology instead of natural abilities. They became dependent on tools and machines. Take away their technology, and they become as helpless as newborn younglings." The screen now showed charts full of numbers and graphs. Dr. Velnara explained each one carefully. The data showed how fast humans lost body heat. It showed how their fingers and toes stopped working in cold weather. It proved that human blood would actually freeze solid at temperatures common on Kythera 7. "The mathematics are very clear," she declared. "Without constant artificial heat, humans will develop hypothermia within 3 hours on Kythera 7. Their core body temperature will drop below safe levels. Their heart will stop beating. They will die," the alien audience whispered, among themselves. The evidence seemed overwhelming. Many species in the room came from harsh worlds. They had evolved thick skin, or special blood, or the ability to hibernate through bad weather. Humans had none of these natural advantages. Dr. Velnara continued her presentation for another hour. She showed more data about wind chill effects. She explained how human lungs would freeze when breathing the super-cold air of Kythera 7. She demonstrated how human muscles would stop working properly at low temperatures. "In conclusion," she said finally, "I recommend that the Galactic Council forbid this human colonization attempt. It is not just dangerous, it is impossible." We would be sending them to certain death. Meanwhile, many light years away on Earth, a very different meeting was taking place. Commander Daeho sat in a small room with his colonization team. Unlike the fancy alien conference room, this place was plain and simple. Metal walls, basic chairs, and one small viewing screen, the fee. Aliens think we cannot do it, Daeho said to his team. He was a calm man with steady hands and quiet confidence. They have been studying us for years. They say we are too weak for ice worlds. Ji-won, the team's chief engineer, shook her head. She was young, but very smart about machines and systems. Let them think what they want. We have good equipment. And solid plans. Tae-min, the survival expert, smiled. He had spent years living in Earth's toughest places. Hot deserts, frozen mountains, and dangerous jungles. Equipment is important, he said. But people are more important. Humans are tougher than aliens think. Hyo-jin, the team biologist, was reading reports on her tablet. The aliens are not completely wrong, she admitted. Kethera 7 will be very dangerous. We must be ready for anything. At the back of the room sat Kyung-soo. He was quiet and did not talk much during meetings. But Daeho trusted him completely. Kyung-soo had worked in Earth's Arctic regions for 10 years. He understood cold weather better than anyone else on the team. What do you think, Kyung-soo? Daeho asked. Kyung-soo looked up from the planet data he was studying. Cold is cold, he said simply. But humans have lived in cold places for thousands of years, long before we had machines or fancy heating systems. The aliens say we depend too much on technology, Ji-won pointed out. Maybe, Kyung-soo replied. But we also know old ways. Ways that do not need electricity or complicated machines. Sometimes old ways work better than new ways. Commander Daeho felt better after hearing this. His team was ready. They had modern equipment, but they also had human determination and ancient knowledge. The aliens could make all the predictions they wanted. Soon they would see what humans could really do. The presentation on the alien ship was ending. Dr. Velnara received praise from scientists across the galaxy. Her research would be published in the most important journals. The Galactic Council would probably listen to her advice. But neither Dr. Velnara nor her fellow academics knew about Kyung-soo. They had never heard of igloos or ice fishing or the 100 other ways humans had survived in frozen places. Their computers and charts could not measure human creativity or stubborn determination. The stage was set for the greatest test of human adaptability in history. The human colony ship Resilient Dawn dropped out of hyperspace near Kethera 7. Through the bridge windows, the ice planet looked like a giant white marble spinning slowly in the darkness of space, beautiful but deadly. Commander Daeho stood on the bridge, watching their new home. "Begin landing preparations," he ordered. "Contact the supply depot and check equipment status." Ji-won worked at her control station, sending signals to the planet's surface. 3 months ago, robot ships had delivered heating units, power generators, and shelter materials to the landing site. Everything should be ready for their arrival. "Commander," Ji-won said, frowning at her screens, "I am getting strange readings from the surface equipment." "What kind of strange readings?" Daeho asked, moving to look over her shoulder. "Power levels are very low, much lower than they should be, and I am not getting responses from half the heating units." Tae-min joined them at the control station. His face was serious. "How low are the power levels?" "About 30% of normal," Ji-won replied. "That is not enough to heat the shelter domes. Not even close." Hyo-jin checked her weather monitoring. "Equipment. Surface temperature is minus 45 degrees right now. A storm system is moving toward our landing site. In about 6 hours, temperatures will drop to minus 55 degrees. Daeho felt a cold worry in his stomach, but he kept his voice calm. "Can we delay landing until the equipment is fixed?" "No, sir," Ji-won answered. We do not have enough fuel to stay in orbit, and we cannot reach the backup landing site with our remaining fuel. The bridge became very quiet. Everyone understood what this meant. They had to land on Kithara 7 today. They had to land with broken heating equipment and a deadly storm coming. Send a message to Earth, Deho decided. Tell them about our situation. Then prepare for emergency landing procedures. As the resilient dawn entered Kithara 7's atmosphere, red warning lights flashed throughout the ship. The landing was rough and hard. When they finally touched down, ice and snow were already blowing against the ship's windows. Meanwhile, in orbit above them, Dr. Velnara watched from the observation deck of her research vessel. She had come to Kithara 7 to document what she believed would be humanity's first major colonization failure. Now it looked like she would get to document it much sooner than expected. Dr. Velnara, her assistant called out, "We are receiving the human's emergency message to Earth." She listened to the message with growing excitement. The human heating equipment had failed. A massive storm was approaching. Surface temperatures would soon become deadly even for properly equipped humans. How long until hypothermia sets in? She asked her medical computer. Based on human biology and current surface conditions, severe hypothermia will begin within 3 hours, the computer replied. Death will occur within 5 to 6 hours. Dr. Velnara activated her communication system and sent a message to the Galactic Council. This is Dr. Velnara reporting from Kithara 7. The human colonization attempt is failing exactly as I predicted. Equipment failure has left them defenseless against planetary conditions. I estimate total mission failure within 6 hours. On the planet's surface, the human colonists worked desperately to unload their ship. The wind was getting stronger and the snow was falling harder. Even with their heavy winter clothing, they could feel the terrible cold trying to reach their bodies. Commander Deho organized his people into work teams. Jiwan, take 5 people and check the power generators. Find out why they failed. Taemin, take another team and try to get the heating units working. Everyone else help unload emergency supplies. The colonists ran between their ship and the equipment depot, carrying boxes and tools. Their breath made white clouds in the freezing air. Ice formed on their face masks and goggles. Jiwan reached the power station and immediately saw the problem. Solar flare damage, she called out over her radio. The control circuits are fried. I can try to repair them, but it will take many hours. Taemin's voice crackled over the radio from the heating unit area. Same problem here. Solar flare killed the electronic controls. I can fix maybe 2 units, but we need at least 8 units working to heat the main shelter. Commander Deho felt the situation getting worse by the minute. The storm was getting closer and stronger. His people were using up energy fighting, the wind and cold. Soon they would be too tired and too cold to work effectively. How long until the storm hits full force? He asked Hyojin. 2 hours, maybe less, she replied. When it arrives, the wind will be too strong to work outside, and the temperature will drop another 10 degrees. Kyung-soo had been very quiet during the emergency, while others worked on the machines. He walked around the landing site looking at the snow and ice. He studied the wind patterns and the way the snow had piled up against the equipment. "Commander," Kyung-soo said over his radio, "I need to talk to you." Deho found Kyung-soo standing near a pile of snow that had been packed hard by the wind. The quiet man was looking at the snow very carefully, almost like he was reading a book written in ice. "What is it, Kyung-soo?" "The machine repairs will take too long," Kyung-soo said simply. "By the time Ji-won fixes the power, half of us will have frostbite. By the time Taemin repairs the heaters, the storm will be here. Do you have another idea?" Kyung-soo knelt down and pressed his gloved hand into the packed snow. "This snow is perfect, dense but not too hard. The wind has been blowing from the same direction for days, so it is packed evenly." Deho did not understand. "Perfect for what?" "For building," Kyung-soo said. He stood up and looked at the approaching storm clouds. "The old way. The way humans survived on ice long before we had electric heaters. You want to build something out of snow? An igloo, Kyung-soo replied. Big enough for everyone. It will be warmer inside than any machine shelter, and the storm cannot break it. Dae-ho stared at his quiet team member. It sounded impossible. How could a house made of frozen water protect them from deadly cold? But Kyung-soo was already walking back toward the equipment depot. I need the emergency snow knives and the measuring tools, and I need everyone to help carry blocks. Up in orbit, Dr. Velnara was preparing her scientific recording equipment. She wanted to document every detail of human failure for her research. She adjusted her long-range scanners to focus on the landing site. Dr. Velnara, her assistant, said, "One of the humans is doing something strange. He appears to be cutting the snow into rectangular pieces." Dr. Velnara looked at her scanner display. Indeed, one small human figure was kneeling in the snow, cutting it with some kind of tool. Other humans were carrying the pieces and stacking them. Panic behavior, she decided. When facing death, many species exhibit irrational responses. The human is probably suffering from cold-induced mental confusion. She made notes in her research journal. Hour 2 after landing. Human subjects displaying signs of cognitive breakdown due to extreme cold stress, one individual engaging in purposeless snow manipulation activities. But Dr. Velnara was wrong about one thing. Kyung-soo's mind was perfectly clear. He knew exactly what he was doing, and he was about to save every human life on Cathera 7. Kyung-soo worked with steady hands despite the howling wind. He cut block after block of snow, each one exactly the same size and shape. The other colonists watched in confusion as he began placing the blocks in a perfect circle on the ground. "What is he doing?" Ji-won asked Commander Dae-ho. She had given up trying to repair the damaged power generators. The solar flare had destroyed too many circuits. "Building us a shelter," Dae-ho replied. He trusted Kyung-soo completely, even though he did not understand the plan. Taemin came over from the heating units, shaking his head. "Only got 2 units working, not nearly enough." He looked at the circle of snow blocks. "Is this really going to work?" "We will find out soon," Dae-ho said. The storm clouds were getting darker and closer. They had maybe 90 minutes before it hit with full force. Kyung-soo finished the first row of blocks. Each block was perfectly fitted against the next one. No gaps, no loose pieces. Then he did something that surprised everyone. He started cutting the tops of the blocks at an angle. "Why are you cutting them like that?" Hyo-jin asked. "To make a spiral," Kyung-soo explained without stopping his work. "Each row will lean inward a little more than the last row. Eventually, they will meet at the top." He began placing the second row of blocks. True to his words, these blocks leaned slightly inward. The structure was starting to curve upward, like the beginning of a dome. Up in her observation ship, Dr. Velnara watched the strange activity through her scanners. "The human is stacking frozen water blocks in a circle," she reported to her assistant. "This appears to be some kind of primitive ritual behavior." Her assistant, a young scientist named Kethra, studied the scanner readings. "Doctor, the structure appears to be following mathematical principles. Each block is precisely placed." "Nonsense," Dr. Velnara replied. "No logical creature would try to build shelter from the same material that is killing them. It is like trying to build a fire with ice." But she continued watching, fascinated despite herself. The human called Kyung-soo moved with incredible skill. He never measured anything, yet every block fit perfectly. He worked faster as the wind grew stronger, but his hands never shook. Other humans began helping him. They carried blocks and handed him tools. One woman started packing loose snow into the small gaps between blocks. A man began digging what looked like a tunnel entrance. "The other humans are joining the ritual," Dr. Velnara noted. "Group panic behavior is common in crisis situations." On the ground, Kyung-soo was now placing the third row of blocks. The dome shape was becoming clear. Each block leaned further inward, supported by the blocks below it and beside it. The structure was actually getting stronger as it grew higher. Commander Dae-ho was amazed by what he was seeing. "How did you learn to do this?" "My grandfather taught me," Kyung-soo said, carefully placing another block. His grandfather taught him. Korean people lived in cold places for thousands of years before we had electric heat. "But this is just snow and ice," Ji-won said. "How can it be warm inside?" Kyung-soo smiled. "Snow is not solid ice. It is millions of tiny ice pieces with air trapped between them. Air is the best insulation in the universe. Better than any machine we could build." Hyojin suddenly understood. As a biologist, she knew about insulation. Like animal fur, fur is not warm by itself. It traps air, and air keeps the warmth in. "Exactly," Kyung-soo said. "This snow dome will trap our body heat. Outside, it might be minus 50 degrees. Inside, it will be just below freezing. Warm enough to live." The fourth row of blocks went up quickly now. The other colonists had learned how to help effectively. They cut blocks while Kyung-soo placed them. They packed snow into gaps and smoothed the walls. Dr. Velnara was becoming frustrated with what she was seeing. Her instruments showed the humans working together with amazing efficiency, but it made no scientific sense. "Temperature readings show minus 47 degrees at the work site," she told Kethra. "The humans should be developing hypothermia by now." "Their body heat readings are still normal," Kethra replied, "and their work rate is actually increasing." "Check the instruments for malfunctions," Dr. Velnara ordered. "There must be an error in our readings." While the aliens argued about their data, Kyung-soo placed the fifth row of blocks. The dome was now tall enough that he had to reach up to place each piece. The opening at the top was getting smaller with each row. "How will we get inside?" Taemin asked. "The walls are too high to climb over." "Through the front door," Kyung-soo said, pointing to the tunnel entrance that Hyojin had been digging. "We crawl through the tunnel, then up into the main room. The tunnel entrance stays low so cold air cannot get in." The sixth row went up as the first snowflakes of the approaching storm began to fall. The wind was now strong enough to knock a person down, but it actually helped Kyung-soo by packing loose snow against the outside of the dome. "Last row," he announced. The final blocks had to be cut in special wedge shapes to fit the curved top of the dome. Kyung-soo worked carefully, making sure each piece locked perfectly with its neighbors. Finally, he lifted the keystone block, the last piece that would complete the dome. It was cut in a perfect circle to fit the hole at the very top. He pushed it into place and packed snow around the edges. "Done," he said simply. The igloo stood complete just as the storm hit with full fury. Wind screamed across the ice plain at over 100 kilometers per hour. Snow whipped through the air like white bullets. The temperature dropped to minus 55 degrees. But the igloo did not move. It sat solid and strong, its curved walls shedding wind and snow. The entrance tunnel was barely visible, protected from the wind by the dome's bulk. "Everyone inside," Commander Dae-ho ordered. One by one, the colonists crawled through the low tunnel entrance. Inside the igloo, they found a circular room 3 meters wide and 2 meters high. Kyung-soo had even carved a raised platform for sleeping and sitting. As their body heat began to warm the air inside, something amazing happened. The inside surface of the walls became slightly wet, then froze again. This created a thin layer of solid ice over the snow blocks. "The walls are getting stronger," Hyojin observed. "The ice coating will make the structure even more solid." Within 30 minutes, the temperature inside the igloo rose to minus 5 degrees. Outside, the storm raged at minus 55 degrees. They had created a 50-degree temperature difference using nothing but snow, air, and human body heat. Dr. Velnara stared at her instruments in complete shock. According to every scientific model she knew, the humans should be dead by now. Instead, They were not just surviving, but actually staying warm inside a structure made from frozen water. "This is impossible," she whispered. Inside the igloo, the human colonists could hardly believe what was happening. The howling storm outside sounded distant and far away. The temperature was rising steadily as their bodies warmed the trapped air. Commander Daeho removed his heavy outer gloves for the first time since landing. "This is incredible, Kyung-soo. How did you know it would work so well?" "My grandfather survived 3 Arctic winters in shelters like this," Kyung-soo replied. "He always said that nature provides everything you need if you know how to use it." Ji-won pulled out her portable thermometer and took measurements around the igloo. "The temperature near the walls is -2 degrees. In the center here, it is +1 degree. We are actually above freezing." "How is that possible?" Tae-min asked. "Outside, it is 56 degrees colder." Kyung-soo pointed to the walls around them. "Look closely at the snow blocks. They are not solid ice. Each block contains thousands of tiny air pockets. Air does not conduct heat well, so it acts like insulation." Hyo-jin examined the wall structure with her scientific training. "The blocks are fitted so tightly that no wind can get through, and the dome shape distributes the weight evenly so it cannot collapse. But the most important part is the shape itself," Kyung-soo continued. "Hot air rises, so our body heat goes up to the curved ceiling. The dome shape holds the warm air and spreads it evenly." As if to prove his point, the inside surface of the walls began to change. The warmth from their bodies was causing a thin layer of ice to form over the snow blocks. This made the walls smoother and even stronger. "The structure is actually improving itself," Ji-won observed with amazement. "The heat is creating an ice glaze that seals any small gaps and strengthens the whole building." Outside, the storm continued to rage. Wind speeds reached over 120 kilometers per hour. Snow piled up against the igloo walls. But this only made the shelter warmer by adding extra insulation. Dr. Velnara paced back and forth on her observation deck, staring at her instrument readings. The data made no sense according to everything she knew about human biology and thermodynamics. "Run a complete diagnostic on all thermal sensors," she ordered Kethra. "These readings must be wrong." "I have run diagnostics 3 times, Doctor. All instruments are working perfectly. The humans inside that snow structure are maintaining normal body temperatures." "Then explain how frozen water can provide better insulation than our advanced thermal materials," Dr. Velnara snapped. Kethra studied the structural analysis data. "Doctor, I think we may have misunderstood the physics involved. The structure is not made of solid ice. It appears to be made of compressed snow with high air content." "Air content?" "Yes, Doctor. Our scans show that each snow block is approximately 60% ice crystals and 40% trapped air. Air is an excellent insulator when it cannot move or circulate." Dr. Velnara considered this information. "But even so, the structure should not be stable in these wind conditions. The mathematical models show it should collapse." "Actually, Doctor, the dome shape is inherently stable. Each block supports the blocks around it, and the wind is actually helping by packing additional snow against the base." Inside the igloo, the colonists were settling in for their first night on Kithara 7. They had brought emergency food and water supplies through the tunnel entrance. The space was cramped but surprisingly comfortable. "I still cannot believe this. Works so well," Tae-min said. "We should be fighting for our lives right now. Instead, we are warmer than we were on the ship." Kyung-soo had carved small shelves into the walls for their supplies. The Inuit people of Earth lived in houses like this for thousands of years. They raised families in igloos. Some igloos lasted for entire winters. "Inuit people?" Hyo-jin asked. "The native people of Earth's Arctic regions? They developed this technology long before humans had metal tools or electric power. They used bone knives and their hands to build these shelters." Commander Daeho was impressed. "How long did it take you to learn this skill?" "My grandfather started teaching me when I was 7 years old. But he learned from his grandfather, who learned from his grandfather. This knowledge goes back hundreds of generations." Ji-won was taking detailed measurements of the igloo's construction. The walls are exactly 30 centimeters thick all around. The entrance tunnel slopes upward so cold air cannot flow in. Even the ventilation hole at the top is perfectly sized. Ventilation hole? Tae-min asked, looking up at the ceiling. Kyung-soo pointed to a small opening at the very top of the dome. We need fresh air, but the hole is small enough that we do not lose much heat, and it is positioned so wind cannot blow directly in. As the hours passed, the igloo proved itself again and again. The temperature inside stabilized at exactly -2 degrees. The walls remained solid despite the incredible wind outside. The colonists were able to eat, rest, and even sleep comfortably. Dr. Velnara finally contacted the Galactic Council with an update, but her message was very different from what she had expected to send. "This is Dr. Velnara reporting from Kythera 7, she said into her communication device. "The human colonization mission has encountered equipment failure as predicted. However, the humans have implemented an unexpected survival strategy." "Are they still alive?" asked the council chairman. "Yes, sir. They have constructed some kind of shelter using local materials. My instruments show they are maintaining stable body temperatures despite external conditions of -55 degrees. "What kind of shelter?" Dr. Velnara paused. She knew how ridiculous it would sound. "They have built a dome-shaped structure out of compressed snow, sir." The silence from the council lasted several seconds. "Did you say snow, doctor?" "Yes, sir. Frozen water. They cut it into blocks and assembled it into a dome. Somehow this provides adequate thermal protection." "How is that possible?" "I am still analyzing the data, sir. It appears to involve principles of insulation and structural engineering that were not covered in my original research." After ending the communication, Dr. Velnara stood quietly looking out at the planet below. Somewhere down there, in a shelter. That should not work. Humans were proving that all her careful theories were incomplete. "Doctor," Kethra said softly, "perhaps we should request permission to land and study their construction techniques." Dr. Velnara nodded slowly. "Yes, I think we need to learn what we missed in our analysis of human capabilities." The storm continued. Through the night, but inside the igloo, the humans slept peacefully. They had turned the deadliest conditions on Kythera 7 into nothing more than background noise. And they had done it using knowledge that was older than spaceflight, older than electricity, older than written language. Tomorrow they would emerge and begin building their permanent colony. But tonight, they were warm and safe in humanity's most ancient high-tech shelter. The next morning brought clear skies and bitter cold to Kythera 7. The storm had passed, leaving behind huge drifts of snow and ice crystals that sparkled in the pale sunlight. The temperature was still -40 degrees, but the wind had stopped. Inside, the igloo. The human colonists woke up warm and rested. Commander Dae-ho was the first to crawl through the entrance tunnel to check conditions outside. The sight that greeted him was amazing. "Everyone come look at this," he called back through the tunnel. One by one, the colonists emerged from their snow shelter. The igloo had not only survived the terrible storm, it had actually gotten stronger. Wind-blown snow had packed against the walls, adding extra insulation. The dome looked like a natural part of the landscape. "It is beautiful," Hyo-jin said, admiring Kyung-soo's work in the bright morning light. But the most impressive thing was how comfortable they all felt. After spending the night in below-freezing temperatures, they should have been tired and cold. Instead, they felt fresh and ready to work. "The igloo is actually more comfortable than our heated quarters on the ship," Ji-won observed. The temperature was steady all night. No cold drafts or hot spots. Kyung-soo emerged from the tunnel carrying his snow-cutting tools. "Now we build more," he said simply. "One igloo for sleeping, one for working, one for food storage, a whole village." Dr. Velnara watched all this from her observation ship with growing confusion and embarrassment. Her instruments showed the humans moving around normally in conditions, that should have killed them hours ago. They were not just surviving. They were thriving. Doctor, Kethra said carefully, we are receiving messages from the Galactic Council. They want detailed updates on the human survival techniques. Dr. Velnara knew what this meant. Word was spreading throughout the scientific community. Other researchers were asking questions about her predictions. Her reputation was beginning to crumble. Send a message to the council, she ordered. Tell them I need more time to analyze the situation. But even as she said it, Dr. Velnara knew she was running out of time. The humans were proving her wrong with every passing hour. And worse, they were doing it with methods that her advanced education had never taught her to consider. On the planet's surface, the colonists were hard at work. G1 and Taimin were repairing the damaged equipment, using the Igloo as a warm base of operations. When their hands got too cold to work with small parts, they crawled inside the Igloo to warm up. Meanwhile, Kyung-Soo was teaching other colonists how to build their own igloos. He showed them how to test snow for the right density, how to cut blocks that would fit together perfectly, and how to create the spiral pattern that made the dome strong. The secret is in the angles, he explained to his students. Each block must lean in exactly the right amount. Too little and the dome will not close at the top. Too much, and it will collapse. Hyo-jin was a quick learner. Within a few hours, she was cutting blocks almost as skillfully as Kyung-Soo. This is like a three-dimensional puzzle, she said. Each piece has to fit perfectly with all the others. Exactly. Kyung-Soo agreed. My grandfather always said igloo building was like architecture, engineering, and art all combined into one skill. By midday, they had started construction on a second igloo. This one would be larger, designed as a workshop where they could repair equipment and store tools. Kyung-Soo showed them how to make connecting tunnels between igloos so people could move around without going outside. Dr. Velnara finally could not stand watching any longer. She called an emergency meeting with the Galactic Council. Distinguished members, she began, her voice shaking slightly. I must provide an updated report on the human colonization attempt. The council members appeared on her communication screen, faces showing curiosity and concern. Are the humans still alive? Asked Councillor Trackmar. Yes, sir. Not only are they alive, they appear to be succeeding. Succeeding? But you predicted certain failure within hours. Dr. Velnara took a deep breath. My predictions were based on the assumption that humans would rely entirely on their technological equipment. I did not account for their ability to use primitive construction techniques. Primitive techniques? They have built shelters using compressed snow, sir. These shelters provide adequate protection from the planetary environment. Councillor Zenthia, an expert in engineering, leaned forward on the screen. Doctor, are you telling us that humans can survive on Kythera 7 using construction methods that predate their space age? It appears so, sir. The council chambers erupted in discussion. Dr. Velnara could hear dozens of alien voices talking at once, expressing shock and disbelief. Order, order, called the council chairman. Dr. Velnara, do you have an explanation for this oversight in your research? Dr. Velnara felt sick with embarrassment. Sir, my research focused on human biology and their dependence on advanced technology. I studied their heating systems, their life support equipment, and their physiological responses to cold. But you did not study their history or traditional survival methods? No, sir. Those seemed irrelevant to space colonization. Irrelevant? Councillor Zenthia sounded incredulous. Doctor, you are telling us that humans possessed the knowledge to survive on ice worlds before they even achieved spaceflight? It appears that way, sir. The council chairman was clearly disappointed. Dr. Velnara, your research has been the basis for major policy decisions. The council has been debating whether to restrict human expansion based on your conclusions. I understand, sir. I take full responsibility for the inadequacy of my research. As the communication ended, Dr. Velnara sat alone on her observation deck, feeling foolish and embarrassed. She had spent 2 years studying human technology, but had completely ignored human knowledge. She had assumed that a species capable of building starships would have forgotten their primitive survival skills. Down on the planet, the humans were finishing their second igloo. The workshop was larger and more complex than the first shelter, with multiple rooms and storage areas. Kyung-soo had even carved windows into the walls, covering them with thin sheets of ice that let in light but kept out cold. "Doctor," Kethra said quietly, joining Dr. Velnara at the observation window. "I have been researching human history in our databases." "What did you find?" "Humans lived in frozen environments for thousands of years before developing advanced technology. They had many techniques for surviving in conditions similar to Cathara 7. Dr. Velnara nodded sadly. "Information that would have been very useful 3 days ago." "Doctor, there is something else. I found records of other human survival techniques that we have not observed yet. Methods for finding food in frozen environments, ways to make fire without fuel, techniques for traveling across ice safely." Dr. Velnara realized that her embarrassment was far from over. If humans had many more survival techniques that she had not studied, her research was not just incomplete, it was fundamentally flawed. "Kethra, send a message to the human colony. Request permission to land and observe their construction techniques." "You want to learn from them, Doctor?" Dr. Velnara looked down at the planet, where impossible igloos dotted the ice like white jewels. "I want to understand how I could have been so completely wrong. The humans had not just survived their first day on Cathara 7. They had made it look easy." And Dr. Velnara was beginning to realize that underestimating humans was a mistake that could cost any species dearly. 3 weeks later, Cathara 7 looked like a completely different world. What had started as an empty ice plain was now a thriving settlement. 12 igloos of various sizes formed the core of the human colony, connected by a network of tunnels that allowed people to move safely even during the worst storms. Commander Daeho stood outside the main community igloo, watching his people work. Ji-won had successfully repaired most of the damaged equipment, but they barely needed it now. The igloos provided better heating and protection than their original technological shelters ever could have. "Status report," Daeho said to his team. "Leaders, all equipment is functioning normally," Ji-won reported. "But honestly, Commander, the igloos work better than our heated domes. They use no power, require no maintenance, and get stronger with age." Tae-min nodded in agreement. "We have completed the food storage igloo, the workshop igloo, and the medical treatment igloo. Each one maintains perfect temperature and humidity for its purpose." "And we have started training programs," Hyojin added. "Everyone in the colony can now build their own igloo if needed. Kyung-soo has taught us all the traditional techniques." Kyung-soo himself was working on the newest addition to their settlement, a large ceremonial igloo where the whole colony could gather for meetings and celebrations. His skills had improved even more with constant practice, and he could now build a basic shelter in under an hour. Dr. Velnara's shuttle landed near the colony that morning. She had finally received permission from Commander Daeho to visit and study their survival techniques. As she stepped out of her shuttle onto the ice, she was amazed by what she saw. The human settlement looked permanent and well-established. Smoke rose from ventilation holes, indicating fires and cooking inside the igloos. People moved confidently between buildings, wearing lighter clothing than she had expected. They looked healthy, comfortable, and completely at home on the deadly ice world. "Welcome to New Kyung," Commander Daeho said, greeting Dr. Velnara at the shuttle landing pad. He had named the settlement after Kyung-soo, whose knowledge had saved all their lives. "Thank you for allowing me to visit," Dr. Velnara replied. Even with her advanced environmental suit, she felt uncomfortably cold. The humans around her seemed unaffected by temperatures that made her shiver. Daeho led her to the main community igloo. As they crawled through the entrance tunnel, Dr. Velnara was struck by how well-designed everything was. The tunnel entrance kept cold air out while the tunnel itself was large enough for easy movement. Inside the community igloo, Dr. Velnara experienced her first real shock. The temperature was actually pleasant, around 5 degrees above freezing. Soft light came through ice windows. The curved walls created excellent acoustics for conversation. Most surprising of all, it felt more comfortable than many advanced alien habitats she had visited. "This is incredible," she admitted to Commander Daeho. "How is it so warm in here?" Kyung-soo, who was carving new furniture from blocks of ice, looked up from his work. 25 people, all producing body heat. The dome shape holds the warm air. The thick walls keep the cold out. Simple physics. Dr. Velnara studied the wall construction carefully. But the materials are just frozen water. How can frozen water provide insulation? Not frozen water, Kyung-soo corrected gently. Frozen air. The snow blocks are mostly trapped air with some ice holding it together. Air is one of the best insulators in nature. I see. Dr. Velnara was beginning to understand her fundamental error. She had thought of snow as solid ice when it was actually a complex material with very different properties. Over the next several days, Kyung-soo taught Dr. Velnara how to build igloos. She was not very good at it at first. Her 4 arms were actually a disadvantage because the work required precise two-handed coordination, but she was a dedicated student, and gradually her technique improved. The most important thing, Kyung-soo explained as they worked together on a practice igloo, is understanding the materials. Not all snow is good for building. Too soft, and the blocks will not hold their shape. Too hard, and they will not stick together. Dr. Velnara tested different types of snow, learning to identify the perfect consistency by touch and appearance. How did your people discover these techniques? Trial and error over thousands of years, Kyung-soo replied. My ancestors tried many different methods. The ones that worked were passed down to their children. The ones that did not work were forgotten. Evolutionary knowledge development, Dr. Velnara realized. Your species develops survival techniques through the same process that develops biological adaptations. Exactly. But faster, because we could teach our children instead of waiting for genetic changes. As Dr. Velnara learned more about igloo construction, she also learned about other human cold-weather survival techniques. The colonists showed her how to make fire from ice using focused sunlight. They demonstrated methods for finding food in frozen environments and techniques for traveling safely across unstable ice. Every technique is based on understanding natural principles, Hyojin explained during one of their lessons. Humans learned to work with the environment instead of fighting against it. Dr. Velnara was taking detailed notes on everything she learned. This knowledge should be preserved and shared with the galactic scientific community. We would be happy to teach anyone who wants to learn, Commander Daeho assured her. On her final day at the colony, Dr. Velnara participated in the completion ceremony for the ceremonial igloo. The entire human colony gathered inside the large domed space to celebrate their success on Cathara 7. When we first arrived here, Commander Daeho said to the assembled colonists, many people thought we could not survive. They thought humans were too weak, too dependent on technology, too fragile for harsh worlds. The colonists laughed. After 3 weeks of comfortable living in their snow houses, such ideas seemed ridiculous. But we have proven that humans are not weak, Daeho continued. We are adaptable. We can learn. We can take ancient wisdom and apply it to new challenges. That is our greatest strength. Dr. Velnara found herself applauding along with the humans. They had indeed proven something important, not just about their ability to survive on ice worlds, but about the value of traditional knowledge and practical skills. When she returned to her research ship, Dr. Velnara immediately began writing a new paper. This one would be very different from her previous work. Cultural Knowledge Systems as Adaptive Technology, a revised assessment of human environmental capabilities, became the most widely read scientific paper of the year. In it, Dr. Velnara admitted her previous errors and presented a new understanding of human adaptability. "I initially focused on human dependence on advanced technology," she wrote. "I failed to recognize that humans possess sophisticated knowledge systems that function as biological adaptations. These cultural technologies allow humans to survive in environments that would kill most species, using nothing more than local materials and inherited wisdom." The paper revolutionized how alien scientists viewed human capabilities. Universities across the galaxy began offering courses in human adaptive technologies. The Igloo became a symbol of human ingenuity, studied and admired by engineering students on dozens of worlds. But perhaps the most important result was the change in galactic colonization policies. The Council removed restrictions on human expansion to harsh environments, recognizing that humans might actually be better suited for difficult worlds than previously thought. Dr. Velnara herself became a regular visitor to New Kyung, learning additional survival techniques and building genuine friendships with the human colonists. She never became as skilled as Kyung-soo at Igloo construction, but she became competent enough to build emergency shelters. "You know," she said to Kyung-soo during one of her visits, "my people have a saying, the student who thinks he knows everything learns nothing. I was that student." Kyung-soo smiled as he put the finishing touches on yet another perfect igloo. "My grandfather had a saying, too. The ice teaches patience to those who listen, and patience teaches wisdom." As the years passed, Cathara 7 grew into one of the most successful human colonies in the galaxy. But visitors always noticed that even as the settlement expanded and modernized, the original igloos remained at its heart. They served as a reminder that sometimes the oldest solutions are the best solutions, and that human knowledge comes in many forms. The colony also became a training center where humans and aliens alike came to learn ancient survival techniques. Kyung-soo, now an old man, continued teaching new students the patient art of reading snow, cutting blocks, and building shelters that could withstand the worst that nature could offer. And in universities across the galaxy, Dr. Velnara's story became a cautionary tale about the dangers of academic arrogance and the importance of respecting traditional knowledge. Her revised research helped establish new scientific principles about the relationship between culture, technology, and survival. The ice planet that was supposed to prove human weakness had instead become proof of humanity's greatest strength: the ability to adapt, learn, and thrive in any environment through knowledge, determination, and cooperation.